It's the Kink Consultant Podcast, where we're turning up the heat on all things kink and dating, relationships, and pop culture. So close the door, plug in your headphones, and let's get down to it. Hey Kinksters, if you've been wanting to deepen your understanding of power dynamics, this is for you. I'm speaking at the Dom Sub Dynamics Virtual Summit happening March 23rd through the 26th. And there are over 20 educators coming together to teach everything from communication to structure to navigating fear and resistance in your dynamic. Best part? It's completely free. You can join from home, learn from multiple experts, and take what works for you. Sign up in the link in the show notes. Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Kink Consultant Podcast. I am here with Julietta Chiara, and she is a certified Shibari instructor. She is our first Shibari expert on the podcast. Welcome, Julietta.
Thank you so much for having me. It means the world. About time we finally sit down and talk.
I do not know how we've gone this long. On social media, we recommend each other all the time. And I know that you've sent people to me, I've sent people to you. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how have we never spoken? In fact, I cannot remember the name of the person. I put out a question and said, who should I have on the podcast? And when someone responded, Julietta, I was like, how has this not?
Absolute honor.
But you are a jet setter. You are all around the world, aren't you? Where are you saying hello from today?
Yeah, so I used to be even more nomadic than now, but I live the majority of my year in Tulum, Mexico. And then during the summer months, I'll head to my home in Barcelona and then travel a little in between, either seeing family in Argentina or seeing my family that I have in Utah, just round and round and round.
It's a blessing and a curse.
100%.
I feel you. I grew up in Ireland, but I lived in New York and Vegas, and now I'm moving to Kansas City. So I'm so grateful for having love in places all over the world, but I like when I get to just sit in one place too.
100%. It was only in the last couple of years where I had this, I don't know if it's like a coming of age, but I was like, I feel like nesting a little bit. If I take one more airplane, I'm going to freak the fuck out, is how I felt.
I totally understand that. But now you kind of have settled now and you have your little routine, which is actually a huge routine to travel that much.
For sure. And then with the Shibari stuff, once every couple years, I do a really big trip to Japan. And that's also completely routine warping. It's like time goes into a vortex. It ruins your work schedule. So you're like just never relaxed.
I totally understand that. Japan is one of the coolest places I've ever been because I've never felt culture shocked until I went to Japan. And I was like, this is such a different culture. And I loved it. When was your first trip to Japan?
My first trip to Japan, I was 19 and I'm 29 now. And so my dad took me, he was doing a business trip. My dad sells e-cigs and has done that my whole life. And so he has a factory in China. And on his way over, he's like, why don't we squeeze in and do like a wonderful Asia trip? And so our first stop was Tokyo. And similar to you, it had been the first time I had been somewhere so different. It felt like being in a sci-fi movie. I remember being like, none of this makes any sense. We are living so far in the fucking past.
Yes, I know. I mean, their vending machines alone told me we were living in the past. It's not just a culture shock. I think that even the way their economy works, I think up until recently, they were like the 5th largest economy in the world. But I'm pretty sure when you buy a house there, it depreciates in value. It doesn't appreciate in value. So it's like there are so many things that we just think our way is the only way. And someone else is like, nope, totally different over here.
And, the deeper I get into, I've had definitely a journey, but knowing that Shibari or Kinbaku is now like an essential part of my life, there does beg the question of, will I eventually have a home there? Because I can make that happen. But it's one of those where you get action paralysis because it's so different and scary and difficult. I live in lawless Mexico. Rules here are suggestions. And in Japan, rules are life. And so I get scared of even starting the process. It makes me go cross-eyed thinking about it. I'm like, okay. I was like, one day, the dream is there. I'm going to have my cool Shibari shrine in the middle of nowhere in the countryside of Japan, and everyone can come see me. And I'm going to hire someone to do it all for me.
You've sparked a million questions, but since you are here to talk about Shibari, you've already sparked one question. Shibari versus Kinbaku?
Oh, man, that's a heated one.
Oh, okay. Right out the gate. Let's go.
So much of Japanese rope bondage. I'll say that as like an umbrella statement.
That's our umbrella, Japanese
Yeah,
rope bondage.
there's so much of it that's so subjective, even up to the history of Japanese rope bondage is really wishy-washy. There's so many different stories on where you think it originated from. And then the discourse, what is the difference between Shibari and Kinbaku? And so what I'm about to say is purely my own opinion. I think it's stupid that you're trying to differentiate the two because Kinbaku, which is the kanji I have tattooed here,
I see it. Yep.
means bondage or the art of tight binding. If you were to Google translate my fingers, it would just say bondage. And shibari in Japanese just means to tie. So shibari in Japanese is a verb. It's not even a noun. So if I say I want to tie, I say shibari tie this. If I said I'm tying, I say shibari shimasu. If I say I tied, I would say shibari mashita.
Yeah.
So it's kind of dumb to debate the semantics of it because you're debating the semantics of a verb.
That's fascinating because when I came into it with that question, I don't know if you know what the general consensus is, but it's sort of like I had heard one of them is more artistic versus the other. Have you heard that explanation?
I've definitely heard that. But again, it's subjective. How like there's no code book that says this is the correct way to do Japanese rope bondage. So how are you going to tell the difference between all of us using the same 5 knots in different ways?
Okay, but there are more than 5 knots, right?
We only have a few knots, and it's more the design work and the tensions and the layout can be what's different. So yeah, again, and I will say this might also be controversial. This might be because I'm Latina and now, I'm so immersed in being accepted into my Japanese lineage. And, I speak very decent Japanese as well. But I'm like, debating the semantics of Kinbaku to Shibari feels like a white people thing.
Oh, okay. I love it.
I have never heard a Japanese person debate these semantics. I've never heard anyone outside of the US debate them. So I think it's a little drama.
As if the kink space does not have enough drama. Like people want to make even more.
Exactly. The kink police.
I just recently did an episode talking about the kink police and how annoyed I was at them all. So now that we understand that, I want to tell you that I have been tied before. I have taken like an intro class to tying, like a 1-2 hour seminar thing. My knowledge is basic. So I am going to ask questions and you might be like, how do you not know this? And it's like, I've only ever been tied. I want to learn everything. So
hey, for sure.
I even told my boyfriend I was getting on this call. He was like, yeah, ask her how to do an intro class. I'm like, I'm pretty sure she has an intro class. So for everyone who's like trying to follow along here, if they did want to actually learn for themselves, my first question is, are you teaching people how to do this?
Yeah, I guess like my rise to fame in Kinbaku is the fact that I have a beginner's course that's formulated in like the easiest way possible to take the hardest things of what I learned in Japan. And then it's kind of like the old textbooks, like this for dummies, and breaking down in a way that is just seamless and also making it enjoyable. So I do teach people how to go from like absolute beginners to feeling confident in their tying skills.
And is that something people can just learn themselves? They don't need to be sitting next to someone to learn to do a knot?
It's a yes and a no. So I think it depends on the level of what you are learning. I think beginner stuff can very comfortably be taught through an online space, but a limit of mine would be anything involving more intermediate stuff where we're now playing with pain, maybe like the deeper sides of kink, and then things like suspension where we lift someone off the ground with rope. I full-heartedly believe that needs to be taught in person to be taught in the most ethical and safer way.
I completely agree with that. I say that for things like any type of edge play. For rigging, I think there are a lot of dangers in that people could fall, and that's an external further risk than a lot of other stuff that I think we play with because you are separated from the person and they are just hanging there. This brings a huge question up for me about shibari in general, pain versus pleasure. I know that part's definitely subjective of how you tie and what you want from it or what you want to give someone as an experience. How much would you say is the painful side when people practice versus just tying and that security and bondage?
Oh, yeah. So in terms of the most evident line in the sand when it comes to the pain versus pleasure is by the time you start going into suspension, it inherently comes with pain. Suspension and being lifted into the air is immensely uncomfortable and it comes with pain. Again, that could be subjective, but suspension was never meant to be this relaxing experience, given the history of wanting it to be torturous, etc. And so that department will always come with objective pain. But pain and the pleasure can be involved at any point in this journey if you want it to, right? And I don't think it's really which tie you're doing. I think it really revolves on what is the connection you have with your partner? How are they manipulating your body? The rope is really a tool. And so I like to think of it as the rope becomes an extension of my arm. And then I'm using it to manipulate you into different forms of feeling. So do you want to feel held? Do you want to feel challenged? Do you want pain? We can make pain happen. I can do that on the floor. So it really depends on what you and I were to decide going into a play space together.
For me, everything you've just described is exactly how I negotiate. It just doesn't involve rope or hasn't involved rope. I mean, it's involved like leather cuffs and different types of bondage. So is there anything different when you negotiate a kink scene that doesn't involve rope versus one that does?
In my opinion, it's not that different. You know, I think the reason we have these really, really tried and true kink processes that we go through in order to negotiate, establish consent, etc., is because they work really well across the board. What I will say, though, the only caveat that I see with rope is that it is one of the riskiest kinks that you can play with. If I'm not mistaken, I forgot where I read where it's breath play is obviously number one riskiest, and then number two is shibari. And that's because of, you know, taking away even the kink. It's just what we're doing with the physicality, right? We're putting people's bodies in compromising positions. So a lot of it depends on how is your body? How can you move? Do you have injuries? Are you not flexible? Then we go into the risks such as nerve damage, circulation issues. So my negotiating and vetting conversations around rope happen to be maybe double the length of other ones because, oh my God, if you were to ever come and tie with me, I like pull up a little form.
Okay. I love a form.
And it's very clinical. And I'm like, are you prone to fainting? No.
Oh my God.
When is the last time you ate? Do you have low blood sugar? It is like you're at your doctor's office, but these are things I have to consider when I'm going to take away your ability to move and also the risks involved with shibari.
Which, by the way, is its own kink in itself, pretending I'm at the doctor being asked those questions before I go into this.
Right? I think people come into my studio and they think they're going to have this elaborate, ancient Japanese experience. And I have to sit down and be like, are you menstruating?
Do you do this professionally, have people come to you, or is it more for the social and fun, erotic, personal side of it?
So ironically, it's almost flipped for me because I always practiced it with myself. And then 3 years ago, as a bucket list item, I was like, you know what? I want to go train at the source, especially with this being a Japanese art. I think there came a point where I was like, this has been a little whitewashed. So I want to go to the source and I want to see what this is about. What started as a bucket list item became, I want to do this with my life. I want to do this professionally. So 80% of the time I'm doing this professionally, and then 20% of the time I'm doing it for play. But it's hard to know that line because I'm having a good time either way.
I 100% get that. It is fun, and I love that you get to live this life that you love and do it so regularly. Were you doing something before you went into this full time?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So before this, I was actually in school to be a sex therapist when I was fresh 18, 19. And as I was in that process, I had started a sex blog. And I'm from Utah, right? So that really took off for the Mormons.
Because it was like general sex, no kink.
No, at the time, no kink. I mean, I was kinky, but I remember talking about my orgasms and sex toy reviews felt less intimidating than talking about my kinks at the time. So that's how I got my rise to fame in that sense. And by the time I graduated with my bachelor's and thought about becoming a licensed therapist, I already had like a full-blown business. I loved what I was doing. I was moving all around the world. And so I left behind the desire to become a licensed therapist, which would have really locked me, like would have put me in a box, like, right? You can only practice in the state you're registered. When people come to you for sex therapy, it could be life-changing, but oftentimes the subject matter is really heavy. And I found that I actually wasn't prepared to deal with the heaviness of why people typically come to sex therapy. And I was having so much fun being a sex blogger, reviewing sex toys, working with sex toy brands. And then eventually I got so fucking bored of that. And I was like, I want to talk about kink. I'm kinky.
Let's talk about something a lot of men deal with but don't always say out loud: finishing sooner than expected. And yeah, that can mess with your confidence. That's where Promescent comes in. Their delay spray is doctor developed and clinically proven to help you last longer without killing sensation. It absorbs into the skin so you're not going numb, you're just in control. Give it 5 to 10 minutes and you're good to go. And if you want to build that stamina over time, their Go Solo Lotion is perfect for practice. It feels natural and actually helps you train your body. Together, one helps you train, the other helps you perform. This is sexual health. Treat it like it matters. Check out Promescent and see what works for you. Head to promescent.com/TKC15 for 15% off your next purchase, or find the link in the show notes.
So that was the moment for you where you were like, okay, let me actually start talking about the things that drive me.
Right? I think I didn't really fit the typical sex educator mold. There was something inside of me that's like, I could show people their vulvas and teach them all of the good stuff, but I want to talk about getting choked.
Let me bring you the good word of choking. Yeah, I 100% get that. As someone who also, I just went straight into talking about kink to the point that when I talk about vibrators or something, I'm almost like, how do I talk about this? Because it isn't the lived experience I have. So kink really was, and it allowed me to go straight into it. But I love that you went the full spectrum. Does the blog still exist?
It does not. I have taken it down, but I'm now restarting a Substack in hopes of getting back into writing. Perhaps this has happened to you in some capacity, but sometimes our passions become work, and that removes a bit of the passion side of it. And so I found that after a while, I had lost my spark with writing, and I would really like that to come back organically. But man, when I'm in that flow, me and an open blog space is pretty unhinged. So I'm excited to bring it back.
So your Substack has already started.
It's started, but we're going to get it rolling.
I totally get it. And it does happen to me. Like, I am so grateful that I made my passion my career. However, there are moments of burnout where I'm just like, I don't even want to think about kink right now.
Right? People see us and they see, oh, the kinky experts, the kinky women, you must be tying people up all day. I'm like, I'm making automations and sending emails and adjusting funnels.
I know. I'm editing content where I'm like hyper focused on if I've said the word okay too many times in this like one thing. What I obsess over now is so different from just getting to talk passionately about kink. And you're right. Sometimes I want to be on a content schedule. I want to get Instagram videos out regularly, but if I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to push it anymore. It's like balancing act.
Yeah. I mean, it's the fallacy of being kinky images is people think that this is our entire life. Like in a weird way, it's so infused with our life, but we also do some normal people shit.
Oh, yeah. And I do think about it a lot because it's such a large part of me, but there was this threshold that I was able to cross where it was a large part of me when I had to hide it. And it seemed bigger, but now that I'm so out in the open, it really gets to just be the 10% of my life that it always has been. It's just that when I didn't get to experience it and I had to hide it, there was almost a magnifying glass on that internally,
Oh, yeah.
There are so many things I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about self-tying, but then you were like, oh, I was studying to be a sex therapist, which means even though you were in Utah, my assumption is that you were in a very sex positive home and upbringing.
Yeah, absolutely. Utah now, Salt Lake City, where I'm from, is amazing. It's very open now. It's kind of become Portland, right?
Yeah.
But as growing up, that was not really the case. I was in the epicenter of the birthplace of Mormons, and it was very much if you are not Mormon or if you are not white, there's some exclusionary stuff there. But I was lucky. I was born to atheist Argentinian sex-positive parents who did not put me through any religious and or sexual shame trauma.
How did they end up in Utah? Because they just went to the epicenter of everything you just described. Yes.
I know. I remember gaining my first slivers of consciousness and being like, wait a minute, why? And it's because we had cousins who lived there and they had sponsored my parents to come and through working for them and sponsoring them on a work visa, help them attain citizenship. So Utah was their only option.
Yes, that makes a ton of sense. That's like how my mother ended up in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Like that was the only option. And that's how you ended up in the place you choose to emigrate to. That is really funny though, because it's the antithesis. Also, just your darker features, your dark hair. And yes, I do associate Utah with the mommy blogger type.
100% the mommy blogger. You're
And then
like,
you come out, maybe it's a Utah thing to be a blogger in general, actually. You come out and you're like, let me talk about sex.
oh yeah, I'm like Mormons, mommy bloggers, MLMs, Utah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so many of them. But then you put your stamp on it. Did your parents know immediately?
Oh, yeah. They knew this was my life calling. I graduated high school a year early. Well, I was older in there because of the cutoff, but I was like, up, I want to be a sex therapist. This is what I want to go into. This is what I'm interested in. And they're like, cool, amazing, let's do it. You know, I still graduated, but I gave up the idea of going further with that. And I started my other company. I was working with a lot of sex toy brands, and then I was managing social media for adult brands. And that's when my family started working for me, and they still do.
Holy crap. Wow. So all of your family?
So there was a point where it was all of them in different variations. Like it'd be my mom receiving the packages because we'd get sent a bunch of toys. Like only in the past 6 months did I go back and I had to clean out an entire storage unit of thousands of dildos.
Oh my gosh.
Like
You were on a regular rotation.
regular freaking rotation. Like it was so scary. My dad was CFO for a while, and then my sister still manages some accounts, and then my other Mormon sister with a kid is my personal assistant. So if anyone's getting emails written back to them, just know that it's one of my Mormon sisters who converted as adults messaging you back the things that you
No way. Well, I love that they're obviously accepting of it, even like through the conversion. That's the thing about kink. I think a lot of people think that religion means you can't enjoy kink, but there is nothing inherently wrong about kink, even religiously.
And I'm curious for you, Amanda, like, have you found that the more religious people are that you work with, the freakier they are?
100%.
I feel like a little angel compared to any religious person I work with.
I feel the same way. And so much of my coaching business is super religious people or people raised in religion. And I'm like, okay, there's a lot going on here that we need to dissect, but it's like the freakiest people. I am not religious, but religious. I was raised Roman Catholic in Ireland. I joke that I enjoy the shame, and it's probably like, I guess I was lucky because some people just end up with a lot of shame and they are not sex positive because the Catholic Church shamed them. I was born kinky, so I was like, shame? Yes, sign me up. This is getting me off. So maybe I fall under that religious bucket of people.
I think so. I think so. But that's the thing. Kinks are modeled from what's happening in society or the things that are happening around us. And so I think in a really beautiful way, kink is almost the side effect to what we go through or what we've been exposed to.
I know, especially some of my kinks. I do have a spanking fetish that everyone who listens to the podcast knows I feel like I was born with, but then other kinks have been put on top of that. I have both experiences of like the thing I was born with versus the thing I found that I enjoyed for different reasons.
A multifaceted one.
Yes, mostly around kink, but yes, in all aspects. I want to talk to you about self-tying. You mentioned it earlier, and we were in some other conversation. I was like, I cannot let this go. Self-tying, do you find it fulfilling? Is it something you do because you just don't have somebody else to tie for you? Do you recommend it as a way to learn to tie, to self-tie? Okay, I think those are my 3 questions I'm throwing at you first.
Okay. I started self-tying. That was probably one of the first things I did when I discovered Shibari. And I think at the time there was some truth to the fact that I didn't have a partner, but it was more because I'm just an impatient bitch. And I was like, I don't want to find the right person I feel fucking safe with. And I'm really good at it. And then other people might not be that good at it. So I don't want to wait for them. It was a very impatient thing as to why I started self-tying. But quickly, when I started self-tying, I realized that for me, it became like a flow activity. And it also helped me be present with my body. I'm an anxious being. I live 100% of the time in my head. So when I tie or when I self-tie, I immediately just drop back into my body and I get to have a nice, beautiful somatic experience with myself. Because, you know, we're binding things together, we're compressing things. There's such a somatic experience to it, even if we're not thinking about the overt kink. And so when I'm tying myself, my breath starts getting slower. I stop thinking about things. I'm more focused on the sensation. And it really does feel like going through some sort of somatic meditation. And it has taught me a lot about my own body. And particularly, I recommend self-tying to anyone who wants to get into Shibari, whether that be the person who wants to be tied or the person tying, because you will understand so much that you just can't learn by watching a YouTube video about the terms of Shibari, you know? I get to learn what feels good, what doesn't. I get to have language on, I don't like when the rope is dragged this way, or I don't like when knots are put here. It's invaluable information about yourself.
I love that. I think that there are some kinks that are hard to do on yourself, but as I'm imagining it, I'm like, I could see how that would be really beneficial. How long were you self-tying before you met a partner who you did this with?
Ooh, this is where it gets kind of fun. I'm going to preface something. I am a bona fide submissive. I have tried being dominant. It is not my thing. Like you said, you were like born with your spanking kink. I was born to be a sub. Being submissive feels as about inherent as my sexuality, my gender identity. It feels like this is me. But when it comes to Shibari, I typically prefer being the one tying. It is the only space in kink where you will see me take a top roll.
That is absolutely fascinating to me because you are so passionate in how you described you being a submissive.
I mean, the lineage I learned under is not very kinky. And so I think the reason I chose to learn from the master that I learned from is because his style is not dependent or aggressive in kink. It's very artistic. And so I get to be on top while still being sort of a sub. Like when I tie people, it's more like I'm servicing you. You know, I'm getting to take you through this beautiful experience. It's not dommy in the slightest. And so I self-tied for a long time, and I did have other people tie me, but the thing is I had a natural inclination for it. And so I was always 10 times better at tying than anyone who attempted to tie me. And, you know, taking responsibility for just being a bratty sub, it always annoyed me because I never would get tied the way I wanted to. Only when I stepped into it professionally and I started to meet colleagues, this sounds douchey, but like are on the same level, have I started having beautiful tying experiences with other people that I melt immediately into their ropes. But I think it's because I know they have the same training, the same knowledge to be able to carry me through it without thinking, like closing my eyes, being like, are they doing it right?
That's so fair. That's not even bratty. I always say, like, you know, if you can't play tennis with a tennis pro and vice versa. If you're a pro, you can teach someone to play, but you're not going to have an engaging match with them. I say that as someone who can't play tennis. But anyway, my point is, I don't even think it's douchey. You do need someone at your level, especially when you know what could go wrong.
Like one place where I'm flexible is I have a Shibari studio here, and every other Sunday we do Shibari Sundays, which is just women who come together to tie and we hang out, and it's like girls' night. And a lot of them are either my friends or they are my students. And in that space, I actually do let people who are very new to it or they have only had a few classes under their belt, I let them tie me because that is also an educational experience for me to be able to give them feedback. But I am also able to, I guess, enjoy being tied in a less intense way by people who might not be as experienced. But these are people I've developed friendships with, trust with. So it'll be interesting to see the day that I have a steady rigger for me.
Do you rig other people? Do you suspend other people?
I do. That's also another thing. And maybe that happens to you as well. But when you are quote unquote the closest thing to an expert at something in the room, people will naturally come to you to facilitate it. So even if I step into a rope jam, being the most experienced person there, people want to get tied by me.
Yeah.
And it leaves me little room to sometimes explore me getting tied. But yeah, I launch people into the air all the time. The only thing is on Instagram, I don't really post it because anything suspension related usually gets shadow banned or taken down. It is funny that people, they're like, really? You suspend, you do all these things? I'm like, yeah, I just can't promote it because I don't want to lose my business
Platform.
front.
Yes, I totally understand that. I've noticed a lot of people who had suspension accounts taken down.
Yeah, I have a separate Shibari account where I post a lot of my suspension work there. I have a real big soft spot for suspension because I think that's where a lot of magic happens.
I bet it does. I like certain types of pain. That pain scares me because it seems like something I can't quickly get out of. So that is something that I would have to obviously work up to for many reasons, but I've never actually been drawn to do it myself, but I can never look away when I see it happening in front of me. It's mesmerizing.
when you watch two people who are very connected and do it, it's like watching a ballet. You just can't stop.
Because it is like a dance. I think a lot of kink scenes are like a dance, but that specifically. Can we talk a little bit about what a rope scene is like, either suspension or not? You have the negotiation stage of it, right? But can you guide me through, like, is that just one part of a scene or is the tying the entire scene? I'd love to learn more and understand more.
Privy to other kink scenes, it's really what you want to make of it, right? Like a question I love asking is, what do you want to feel? And then I always ask, what do you want the vibe to be? Do you want the vibe to be deep and introspective so you have time to sink into your experience internally? Do you want it to be casual where we're just talking like friends? Do you want it to be sensational? So when you're tied up, maybe we have scratching, massaging. Do you want it to be overtly more painful than it already is?
Because then you'll tailor to that. You will find a way to make it more painful.
Exactly. And so the rope scenes, it really just depends on the vibe. Typically, if I'm tying with friends, it's a little more casual. And maybe we just pop on a good playlist and we start tying, and then I'll lift them in the air. We're laughing, we're giggling, we're saying, ouch, oh my God.
Yeah.
Getting some good photos in. But say I'm taking someone through a more introspective session, which is what I call just slowly guiding you into the feeling of the pain, the binding, etc., and letting you have your own experience and letting you drop in without needing to like give me validation or say anything. It's a lot like a typical kink scene where it's like, how do we start our scene? It's usually going to be something to warm us up and slowly get us into the headspace of submission, right? Tying a tight body, like if you're all tense and stuff like this, it's not comfortable. So usually we'll do very slow tying to begin with, and then we'll slowly inch our way up into the meat of the scene, which would be launching your little body up there.
If you have someone come into you and it's their first time, will you suspend them?
Almost never. I think there's subjective, like safety things, and then there's personal boundaries around it. So the only times I've ever suspended people I just met is because they are in the Shibari space, and I have clearly seen myriads of evidence that they have been suspended, and they've been able to really clearly communicate their needs, desire, wants, etc. But particularly if someone's never been tied up, period, or they haven't done a lot of shibari. And then if I don't know them, it's a very intimate thing. Tying someone is already intimate. You know, you're putting your entire body in someone's hands. Suspending them and pushing them to their edge and then taking them along a ride that's potentially really dangerous with a lot of risk and could be really cathartic and somatic, etc. It's so fucking intimate that if I don't know you, it's just not going to happen.
Oh, that makes so much sense. That energy space you have to enter, whether you're submissive, dominant, top, bottom, you are entering an energy space with someone. And I feel like any type of kink, you want to be careful before you do it.
People have tried to use this as bad feedback towards me because I'm one of the few professional shibari people that I do not offer sessions for you to pay for me to tie you. Because more often than not, I don't fucking know you.
Yeah. So what do you offer sessions for?
Yeah, so I offer sessions for learning. I'll do a lot of like open houses, the online training. And so, yeah, I teach a style from a very famous master. I am licensed under Hajime Kinoko. And so I teach his style, which is very sought out. And the bulk of my work would be private sessions teaching this. But then as people get into my spaces and we get to know each other a little bit more and we feel comfortable, that can definitely change. But right at face value, I do not offer sessions to where you can pay me to tie you when I don't know you.
Oh, that's a great boundary to have.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I'm curious, outside of shibari, you said you were submissive. Are there other kinks you're into? Do you have scenes outside of that?
You know, it's funny because Kinbaku or shibari is so hands-on tool-wise, but I'm not a huge tool kink girly. So I'm like heavily psychological kink girly. In my flavor of submission, my largest kink is being objectified. Largest one. Sprinkle that with a dizzle dazzle of degradation, humiliation. So typically I prefer that in a psychological way. So how I'm talked to, how I'm being treated, how I'm being guided. And then, yeah, the actual tools for some people that tend to be big tend to be so secondary for me. So I do like impact. I do like certain sensation. Being this, my archetype is I'm the boss babe who's always in control. Like if you can get into my fucking head and fuck with me, that's where my submission lives.
That is sexy as fuck. Okay.
Yeah, we've been in this lifestyle for a while. Like for myself personally, I'm like, oh, I can get spanked all day and not get into a submissive space. I can get tied and not get into a submissive space. Can you maneuver and play me like a violin psychologically? Now we're talking.
Do you have any advice for people looking for that type of dynamic, for someone who wants to find a partner who's into this?
That's a fucking hard question, isn't it? Because
I
I'm sure
ask so many people because it is a hard one.
let me know if you get this. Every time I get it on my Instagram or in any of my programs, it always like hits me in the chest is the how do I find the perfect dom? And I'm like, oh, that's such a loaded question.
It is. Well, how do you answer that? Do you answer that?
Well, the way that I answer that is one, I hate that question because when you contextualize it, they're typically wondering, where can I just order a dom like an Amazon item? They're just going to show up and be perfect and guide me. And what they're not considering is that finding the perfect dom subjectively for you is just going to be a lot like dating. You have to make a connection. You have to get to know each other. You have to build trust. You have to build safety. That could be with someone from FetLife. It could be from someone you met at the grocery store. You just don't know. And this is easier said than done. You and I are so open that this is normal, but I always lead with my desires first. Within 1 to 2 conversations of anyone who connects with me where we might be intimate, my submissive identity is the first thing that they know about.
I mean, it's almost a responsibility to share it, I feel. And I was just talking to a friend about this. If you know it's important to you, you owe the respect to the other person to have the option to opt out early before they find it out about you. And it's nothing to be ashamed about, but it's like, show your true self so they can see it. And then you know whether it's worth going forward with them or not.
And then even if you get nervous, my other portion of advice is when you are confident in your own desires, you give permission for other people to be confident in theirs as well. Someone might not appear dominant or appear kinky. You don't know that. But if you give them the permission slip to say, hey, this is who I am, they might say, I've always wanted to explore that. Or, oh, I am this way, but I haven't had anyone who I can share this with. And so I think creating that dialogue and then just remembering that we are all humans. We're not these like kink pumping machines, that you can create these really beautiful dynamics and they don't need to be as stereotypical as you might find them to be.
Or serious. That's something I want to point out. Like, there is no shame in being kinky, and make it fun because it is fun. We enjoy it because we find great joy and experiences that you don't get elsewhere. That's fun. It's novel. It's exciting. It's compelling. So like if you treat it with that respect too, I think it helps draw someone in. Oh, and I hate to step on a soapbox right now, but I do have one thing to say to that perfect dom question. My version of that is, well, I don't want to teach a dom. That one gets me because I'm like, I always say you teach people how to love you. And to your point, it's just like dating. Teach them how to dom you. And again, the tennis thing, it's like, go meet someone at your level, learn together and improve together instead of just like cherry picking, again, the perfect dom. Then you're just getting his version if he's way more advanced or she's way more advanced. So that's my version of the perfect dom for me. It's like, I don't want to teach. I'm like, we teach everyone how to love us if we enter a relationship.
Yeah, there's always going to be an inherent level of teaching when you connect with someone. But I particularly almost exclusively, outside of Shibari, work with submissive women. And so that tends to be one of the largest hurdles is how much teaching am I willing to do before I don't feel very submissive?
Ooh, that's a good point. For me, it's about if you are with someone curious and interested in learning by themselves, then you don't have to do as much teaching.
Exactly.
So it's sort of like, that's my threshold of I dated vanilla for a long time. And I would know early on if they were willing to do the work and research, that was my line in the sand. If we were dating for a month and they had not done any research on their own, I was like, oh, this is never going to work. But if they had done things and was like, well, I was looking at this, I'm like, this is a good positive sign.
100%. I think when I get angsty about looking for partners, like my one little victim-y quote that always comes up for me is, I want someone to teach me something new.
Ooh, wait. I fucking like that. I hate that you told me that line. I'm in a wonderful relationship with someone who shares my fetish. Everything's really good. But yeah, I never had that line, but I felt it deeply when you said it.
So that, again, it's not a healthy thing to say, and it's very victim coded, and it's very benign of self-responsibility and communication. But yeah, when I ever get like pouty little girl, I'm like, why can't someone teach me something new.
Well, and that's why you want them to get in your head, because what they're going to teach you is something about yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay. We are coming up on time. This has been a wonderful conversation. I'm like, there are 1,000 other things I could ask, but I want to circle back to how we began the conversation. I'm going to go get your intro course because I'm excited to learn, and so is my partner. What advice would you like to impart on everyone about learning Shibari? Any tips, tricks, things you just want people to know before they start their journey?
Number one tip, we see this a lot in like the medical field as well. Don't read everybody's opinion on Shibari. You just got to make your own opinion. Everybody has a lot to say in the way that it's taught, and especially in America, people are very opinionated. Just choose somewhere to learn and learn it for yourself and create your own dynamic and your own ecosystem with Shibari. You don't need to take everyone's opinion in order to formulate it. The second is learn with yourself. The self-tying thing, I will always, always, always recommend it because you are going to learn a lot from tying yourself. And even if you want to be the one rigging, you are going to learn a lot about what the people in your ropes are feeling. I find that to be so fucking valuable. And then the third is be prepared to see what the ropes tell you. I think the ropes tell you a lot about yourself. You might go into it thinking this is going to be sultry and kinky, and then they might make you emotional or feel tender. It's almost like a mood ring. Let the ropes tell you what you need to know.
Oh, what a freaking quote. Thank you very much. Where can people find you? I am, of course, going to put links in the show notes, but if people are on their phones right now and they want to go look immediately, where can they find you?
Easiest place would be Instagram. So it's at Julietta Chiara. And if you want to see the suspension to prove I know what the fuck I'm doing, you can go to at Chiara Shibari. I promise you, I do the real thing.
We could have dedicated a whole episode to getting freaking angry at people who just look at you and think, oh, you're young, you know nothing. You're just selling yourself for easy views. No, you have put in the freaking work.
Until you had a Japanese master make you cry every single time you train, I don't want to fucking hear.
Oh my God. I don't know if I could have survived that.
I'm amazed he didn't have a bamboo stick to hit me with. You know, it was just his sheer presence and like humiliated stare that was good enough to push me towards the end. So I've put my heart and soul into this. I would love to introduce you to it. And I'll introduce it to you in a way that is not so Japanese coded with the shameful stares and the big critiques. I'm like a loving fairy rope mom who just guides you into it and makes you feel confident about starting your rope journey.
That was extremely self-aware because that is every vibe I have gotten from you the entire time I've been chatting with you today, following you. Julietta, thank you so much for being here. I hope to have you back maybe in a year's time where I can actually talk about my experiences learning.
I would love that. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Kinksters, if you enjoyed hearing from Julietta, I have great news. She'll also be teaching at the Dom Sub Dynamics Virtual Summit. Head to the link in show notes to grab your free ticket. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone who might find it interesting. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out. Email info@thekinkconsultant.com. Until next time, keep on kinking on.